Hi, it's Maggie the Irish Gypsy here to bring you your April 2019 mid-month general reading. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Welcome to any newcomers, any first-timers, and welcome back to followers, subscribers. Thank you for taking the time to tune in today. Thanks also to my clients out there, regular and new, for the continual busyness with personal one-on-one readings. Always an honor and a pleasure to read for all of you. And as many of you who follow me know, if you are interested in a personal one-on-one reading with me, live or recorded, you can get more info and contact details by clicking on the description link below. Feel free to email me directly at maggie1mcguire@gmail.com. I'd be delighted to work with you. I do a wide variety of readings in all areas of life. I can usually respond to your initial inquiry within the same day or the first 24 hours. And since I do readings full-time, 5 to 6 days a week, it is all that I do. I'm pretty diligent at working with people's schedules to set up readings for you as quickly as possible. So send me an email if you're interested, and we will proceed from there. All right, let's get right into this reading. This is for the air sign of Aquarius for the remainder of April 2019. Aquarius for the last half of April 2019. Remember that general readings always play out a little differently for everybody watching, so if you know your rising sign, moon sign, Venus sign, watch those as well for additional pieces of the picture, a little more clarification. Okay, Aquarius. We begin with the Page of Swords, followed by the Moon. We have the Four of Swords, followed by the Queen of Cups. From the bottom of the deck, the overall focus and energy is the Nine of Swords. Never a card I really like to see, but as with all of the cards, there's both positive and challenging aspects to it. So the Nine of Swords is the overall energy and focus for the remainder of April 2019, but forewarned is forearmed. That's why we do these readings, so it doesn't have to be just like this. The Nine of Swords, sometimes referred to as the insomnia card, it's a card that represents a lot of stress, anxiety, worry, fear. Usually it's a card that shows up when what you're fearing is something which hasn't happened yet. Fear of, what am I going to do if this happens? What am I going to do if this doesn't happen? Swords is air energy. That's the element which represents this suit. And it's all about the energy of things that go on up in our heads, our perspectives, our perceptions, our belief systems, our ideologies, truth, education, intellect, mental, cerebral, psychological energy. It's all about what goes on up in our heads between our two ears. So because what we believe and how we perceive things directly affects what we see as the reality of the world, how we see the world, how we relate to the world, how we communicate our own words, ideas, and feelings to the world and to people. So swords is mental energy, or things that deal with mental energy, truth, illumination, insight, higher education, learning, etc. So the Nine of Swords, it can be one specific thing that you're stressed and anxious about, how something plays out in the future. I feel like it's a conversation or news or messages of some kind for many of you, or it could be a whole variety of thoughts. Now, the positive aspect to the Nine of Swords is that this energy is somewhat illusionary, meaning that the source of your fear, concern, worry, anxiety may be valid, but the Nine of Swords usually comes up when you're overthinking it, circular thinking, kind of like a dog chasing its head. You're dwelling on a future which hasn't played out yet, or you're dwelling on the negativity of the situation, and the outcome you imagine is always the worst possible outcome, hence the staying up late insomnia card. But as you can see, there is an owl sitting on the little windowsill here, and everything on a tarot card is symbolic. Everything is symbolic. The colors, the shapes, the designs, the people, the animals. You could spend many hours just on one card. Owls are one of those universal symbols for truth, wisdom, insight, enlightenment, an answer or solution of some kind. But this woman can't see that the truth or the reality of the situation or a solution or some kind of insight is right there, because she's only focused on the worry, the stress, the anxiety, and fear. So while the source of it might be valid, the source of whatever it is that you're worried about might be quite quite true. The Nine of Swords represents thinking about it and imagining the worst to such an extent that you're actually making it worse in your head than is actually reflected in the reality of the situation. And for many of you, Aquarius, I feel like it is either some news or a conversation that you've had or that you're thinking of having or need to have with someone or with some people, and you're a little confused and cloudy as to how to go about doing it or how to process and deal with news or information you've received. Because we have the Page of Swords and the Moon here. So more swords energy. So far out of 5 cards, you have 3 swords. So a lot of mental energy, a lot of thought, thinking energy. Pages are just starting out. They have that young, youthful student apprenticeship energy. They can also represent being on the introductory part of a path, just starting out. Got a lot of path to traverse, a lot to learn. They can also represent messages or messengers, because that's what pages were in medieval times. Young people, children, sometimes as well. So the Page of Swords is delivering, bringing some kind of news, message, information, conversation. And he's trying to figure out the right way to do it. And he's young and he's very eager to do his job, to deliver this information, but he may not know exactly how to do it or what the best way is to do it. Because sometimes the Page of Swords can represent being in an ethical or a moral dilemma, and trying to decide what the best way through it is, or what is the right thing to do, what is the best thing to do, what is the right thing to do here, and feeling a little unsure and nervous about it because pages don't have very much experience. They're just starting out. Because swords is also about truth, the absolute truth. So what is the right thing to do here? Now the Page of Swords is clarified by the Moon, a major arcana card. So the Moon can represent that deep spiritual. It can represent deep spirituality. Often when you see the Moon depicted in cards, there is that spiritual element. But this is almost kind of the subconscious, like things kind of stirring in our stomach. It can sometimes relate to our spiritual intuition that resides kind of deep in our soul, or deep in our stomach. But so it can represent, it can have kind of a cloudy feel to it, and it may also sometimes represent a situation where you may not be seeing things in exactly the truth that they are, or for the reality that they actually are. Because things look very different under the light of the Moon than they do under the light of the Sun. There's sometimes more subconscious fears associated with this. Under the light of the Moon, there's a lot of shadowy nooks and hidden recesses, and what we see, in the darkness or in the light of the Moon, in those shadowy corners, may frighten us. We may imagine them to be something dangerous or scary, or like this Nine of Swords, imagining the worst possible outcome, when in fact that bear you're seeing off in the corner is actually nothing more than that gnarly old tree that's just there all the time. In the daylight you can see what it is, but at night it looks like something different, something scary. So excuse me, these end of winter colds, they just linger on and on and on. Excuse me for hacking into the microphone. So Aquarius, there's a lot of stress and anxiety. I feel like you've kind of worked yourself up over, and here's where the story is going to split, because it's a general reading, and for some of you it's going to be news, information, or conversation that you've had recently or been delivered to you recently, and you're not exactly sure how to process it, and there's a lot of stress and anxiety over it. You may be imagining the worst, or you may be imagining meanings or motives that are not exactly what the person or the conversation was intended to be. I think for a little more of you, I'm getting the strong feeling, and I have since the beginning, Aquarius, that some of you, there is a truth you need to tell, or a conversation you need to have. Some of you, because the Page of Swords can represent being in a moral or ethical dilemma, you may know about something that's going on that you need to reveal or talk about. It may be that you see something wrong going on, or see somebody doing something wrong, or something's come to your attention, and you're trying to figure out, should I say something? What's the best thing to say? Because it feels like many of you, there's something, I almost feel this pressure in my chest and behind my lips, like there's something I need to say. There's some kind of truth or conversation, something that I need to come out with, but I'm not exactly sure. Number one, you might be questioning whether or not you should do it, and if so, what's the best way to do it here, which is where all this stress and anxiety is coming from. How is this going to play out, and kind of imagining all these, possible scenarios, most if not all of which, are quite negative. And I really feel like Spirit is kind of telling you to take a step back, at least for this time period, and kind of get your thoughts under control and get your emotions under control as well. Because at or towards, the last week or so of April, time always being kind of fluid and never more so than a general reading. But around this time, we have the Four of Swords and the Queen of Cups. Excuse me. So more sword energy here. The Four of Swords is about taking a step back because you possibly feel tired, overwhelmed, exhausted. Sometimes that's what the Four of Swords can indicate. You just need a break. The swords, again, represent whatever the thought, the challenge, the situation is. You can see that these three are pointing down at him. His own sword is residing close by his hand should he need it. But for the time being, he's disengaged from whatever the conflict, the battle, the challenge, the issue is. He's taken off his gauntlet and his helmet and his hand gauntlets, but he's still girded for battle. The implication being that it's a kind of a temporary break, a temporary step back to recuperate, recover, get a different perspective, get your thoughts, your mental process in order. And that's also underscored by its accompanying and clarifying card, which is the Queen of Cups, which represents emotional stability. Cups is water energy. That's the element which governs this suit. And in the tarot, the energy of water is the area of our life that deals with our heart, our emotions, our emotional landscape, our feelings. It's also the area of our life that deals with relationships, those mercurial feelings. Now, which can go up and down. They're wonderful, they're terrible, but feelings are not completely reliable, and you should never make important or life-changing decisions based purely on what you're feeling at the moment. The logic has to kind of balance and temper things out too, which a queen would do. Kings and queens are individuals who have mastered their suit. They're kind of at the top of their game. It represents that kings and queens are individuals or energy that's grown and matured and evolved beyond that young, childlike, immature energy of the page, that spontaneous, immature energy of the knights, and they've reached a point of self-control and self-mastery over the character traits inherent to their suit. Queen of Cups, Queen of Water. So the Queen of Cups is someone who feels these emotions quite deeply, the same as she always has, and that everybody does. But she's reached a point in her life through experience and wisdom and trial and error where she's a loving, nurturing, caring person, and she's deeply emotionally sensitive and in tune with her emotions and very nurturing and caretaking about them. But she doesn't allow her emotions to control her. So it's about being emotionally balanced, still being a loving, compassionate person, but being emotionally balanced as well. You can see in how she's holding out her cup, her emotions, her love. She's neither, holding them out, in a very assertive or aggressive manner, nor is she clutching them to herself out of fear either. She's kind of just standing there patiently holding her emotions. Sometimes I get a sense of waiting from the Queen of Cups in the Gilded Tarot deck that I'm using as well. Kind of patiently waiting, being exactly in the space of who she is and what she is, but definitely being emotionally balanced and emotionally controlled and not wearing her heart on her sleeve, so to speak. For some of you, this may represent a water sign individual that may be important or influential in this situation. You may be needing to take a step back from this person. Could be Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio person. But also it's about taking some time out to get your thoughts in order, get perhaps a different perspective, take a bit of a break, particularly a break from your thoughts about the situation, because there's a lot of stress, anxiety about how you feel this is going to play out in the future. Let's just get a clarifying card for that Nine of Swords. What is this Nine of Swords about? Oh, jumped right out there. The Five of Wands and the Five of Swords. Interesting. 2 fives here. A number that can represent conflict, shifting, difficult challenges and changes, but again, the most opportunity for positive change too. So the Five of Wands is conflict, internal conflict, external conflict. And I don't really know any conflict that involves us and other people or making decisions that isn't both internal and external. But for some of you, it can represent conflict within a group of people. This could be, in a family system, a work environment. Again, there's so much mental energy. This could be in a, love relationship, family, work environment, etc. It's going to be different for everybody. This can represent, just keep going around the same thing over and over again. Nobody winning, nobody losing, fighting the same fight, arguing over the same thing. Nobody willing to kind of step back and elevate themselves and go, look, what's really important here, and let's focus on that. It's just going around and around in a circle. And this can also represent what your thoughts are actually doing to the conflict within yourself. And then the Five of Wands, which can represent victory, which comes through a battle, a struggle, a challenge, a hard-won victory, a victory which has come at a great cost and sometimes or a lot of effort. And sometimes the people on the ground behind him can represent that the victory comes at the cost of a personal relationship or personal relationships. Sometimes it can represent that in order for you to move ahead and win or free yourself from a situation, you may need to leave a person or people behind, particularly if they are, selfish, self-serving sort of people. So it looks like that's what the stress is about. And again, I feel like for a lot of you, it's what is the right thing to do? Do I speak up? Do I say something? If so, how do I go about doing this? And I really feel like Spirit is advising you, at least for this short time period, we're just looking at a couple of weeks, the last half of April here, you need to take a step back and kind of clarify, get some perspective, maybe talk to a trusted friend, mentor, guide, advisor, etc. Get your emotions and your thought processes in order. Excuse me. Let's get one last advice card from Spirit here for how to best move through this period of time in the remainder of April in this situation. Oh, another one just jumped right out. Oh, two major arcana cards, the Hermit and the Hierophant. The Hermit is about taking a step back. This is about retreating from the distractions or the environment that this conflict has put you in, and using your experience, and this is about taking a step back. That's what I'm getting pretty much completely from the Hermit. The Hermit, like all the cards, can have a lot of different varieties and depths of meaning. But hermits, monks, monastics, they retreat from the distractions of their conventional day-to-day life in order to seek out insight, wisdom, guidance, get clarification on something, or to seek out clarity. Maybe do a little bit more meditation. The Hierophant, convention, tradition, walking the same path that everybody else is walking, a variety of things. But in this situation, I'm getting that I think a lot of you, Spirit's advice is to take a step back here, try and get your thoughts and your emotions on a more even keel, a more clear-sighted kind of way, would definitely at least temporarily withdraw from whatever this conflict is. And I feel like for many of you, Spirit is also telling you to seek advice from someone, a trusted friend, mentor, therapist, priest, counselor, somebody whose opinion and experience you respect and admire, and that carries weight with you. I don't feel like for the majority of you that this is a time, if you can at all avoid it, this is not a time to take action, because I feel like there's still too much cloudiness, and you need to kind of take a step back. And removing ourselves, creating some distance between us and whatever the situation is, can often provide not only some relief and recuperation time, but a different perspective and some clarity, which is very difficult and sometimes impossible to find when we're right in the middle of it and thoughts and emotions are running high. And again, perhaps seeking an external source of guidance, support, feedback, advice as well. So Aquarius, that pretty much wraps up your April 2019 mid-month general reading. I hope that you found it helpful and useful, gave you some food for thought at least. Again, if any of you are interested in scheduling a more personal one-on-one reading with me, particularly if this resonated for you, please feel free to contact me directly at maggie@gmail.com. I would be most happy to work with you. You can also find me on the smartphone app Instantgo under Irish Gypsy, and that link is also provided. That's good for quick answers to the quick, easier questions. For more complicated or in-depth issues, traditional readings are probably best. I do love and romance, of course, compatibility charting, career, work, and finance, investment readings, I offer gift readings as well for friends, family, and loved ones as gifts. And I also do overviews, 6 and 12-month overviews, which take a look at what's coming in all the main areas of your life over a 6 or 12-month period, depending on how far ahead, excuse me, depending on how far ahead you want to look. So a few things to choose from. I will see you all again in a couple of weeks, Aquarius, for the May 2019 general readings. And until then, as always, I wish you joy, peace, blessings, and a happy life. Take care, Aquarius, and I hope to see you back here again soon. Bye-bye.